Death sentence for ex-Navy officers in Qatar commuted. Ex-Indian Navy officers won't hang. Modi diplomacy prevails in the Gulf. Our top focus on 5 Live.
Eight Indian Navy veterans, including a Commodore-ranked officer, will not be sentenced to death. They will not hang, they will not be executed by the state of Qatar because the sentence that they received in October this year has been commuted. They will still have to serve a jail term unless India can convert this big diplomatic win in Qatar's judiciary into an all-out victory, with these 8 men being brought back to India. 8 Indian Navy veterans working for a private sector company sentenced to death on charges of espionage. And thanks to India's diplomatic machinery and pressure, that death sentence has been commuted. We'll tell you how it happened, why it happened, right here on 5 Live. I'm Shiv. These are the headlines. Ram Mandir politics escalates. Sharad Pawar says consecration ceremony has been politicized. Suspense over Samajwadi Party chief Akhilesh's attendance to the event. Mamta likely to duck. Over 20 arrested and 1,000 detained for vandalism in Bengaluru. BJP backs the protest, says outfit fighting for Kannada pride. Shameless politics over damage to private property by a bunch of hooligans. Team India split widens. Now it is Congress versus Sena in Maha Aghadi. Uddhav Sena seeks 23 Lok Sabha seats in Maharashtra. Congress says, keep dreaming. DMDK chief Captain Vijay Kant passes away. Captain was on a ventilator support after testing positive for COVID, leaves a huge void in politics that had been dominated by the 2 big Dravidian parties. India asked Pakistan to extradite Hafiz Mohammad Saeed in the 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks case. But is this going to yield anything at all after 15 years? There's huge relief for 8 Indian Navy veterans who had been sentenced to death in Qatar earlier this year. A Qatar court has now commuted the death sentence to 8 Indian Navy veterans who worked for a private sector company. They will no longer be sentenced to death. Their sentence has been commuted to a jail term, which means these ex-naval officers will not hang. The 8 officers were sentenced to death by a Qatar court in October this year over alleged espionage allegations. They were accused of spying on behalf of Israel. A detailed judgment in the case is still awaited, and Indian authorities are in close touch with the legal team as well as the family members to decide on the next steps. This is a big diplomatic win for India, no matter which way you look at it. The death sentence is no small thing in a country like Qatar, and usually such sentences are carried out. Prime Minister Narendra Modi had met with Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani on the sidelines of the COP28 summit in Dubai on December the 1st. And this development comes in the wake of that. They discussed their bilateral partnership and the well-being of the Indian community living in Qatar. It was the first time that the 2 leaders had met since the 8 former Indian Navy personnel were handed the death sentence by a court just a few weeks before. I want to first, as always, bring in India Today's Gaurav Sawant, who happens to be in Ayodhya, bringing us amazing coverage from there. But I insisted on bringing him on this story because Gaurav and I were the first to break this story and highlight it in the national media in August last year. Gaurav, big win, very, very significant development. The case is far from over. We don't know what those jail terms, are likely to be. So there is, a long distance to go as far as the legal work is concerned, as far as these 8 ex-Navy men is concerned. But for a death sentence in Qatar to be commuted, major, major win for India.
Shiv indeed is, and it's such a relief for you, a relief for I, and a relief for the family members and for Indians in general. The fact that these 8 Indian Navy personnel, officers and sailors will not hang, that was the big fear when the initial court order had come. But there was this hope. India's diplomacy and intervention at every level, at the level of our diplomats, at the level of External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, and also at the level of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as you pointed out, Shiv, at COP28 when he spoke to the Emir of Qatar. So very good news. A battle has been won. A war still has to be fought, Shiv. Our soldiers, our sailors and officers are innocent. They've been implicated. Some element has been accepted by the court, but a detailed written order is awaited. The moment a written order is received, so India has been able to get consular access. The 8 officers and sailors who were in isolation and solitary confinement are now with each other. They've been able to get access to their families, meet their families. So some forward movement is there. They will not hang, but hopefully, either in a superior court or the pardon by the Emir. Either ways, India is very hopeful that sooner than later we'll be able to bring them all home safe. And that's one major step forward, Shiv.
Gaurav, nobody will ever get to know what went behind the scenes. There is a judicial process going on in Qatar. But, just throw some light on what kind of effort India would have made from our side in terms of the diplomatic machinery at the External Affairs Ministry, the Indian Embassy in Doha. How would all of that have gotten involved in this case?
So the relationship between India and Qatar is extremely warm. We have a large number of Indians who work there. Indians are very well respected in Qatar. At the level of our embassies, India extremely strong, not just in Qatar, but all along, the Middle East. India's really invested very heavily diplomatically, considering people-to-people ties are very good. Shiv, you'd recall when Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited these countries, all the heads of state, government, they were all there to receive him, met him, interacted with him. India's relationship with Saudi Arabia, extremely warm with Prince Mohammed bin Salman, with the United Arab Emirates, again, extremely warm and cordial relations. They describe each other as brothers in these countries. Again, with the Qatar Emir, India's warmed up a lot, they've warmed up a lot. So an effort has been made at every level. This was a dirty trick played by our neighbor in this case. That's what sources are telling you and I. So a dirty trick played by our neighbor. Fortunately, because of our diplomatic ties, we've been able to at least as a country get them out of harm's way as far as the hanging was concerned. Now the hope is get their sentence reduced and get them home, even if it means getting a pardon from the Emir as quickly as possible, Shiv.
As quickly as possible is the key word. Gaurav, thank you very much for that. It's important to note that the commutation of the death sentence, reducing it to a jail term, does not mean that the case is over. Like Gaurav said, this is the long haul. A lot needs to be done. There are many options, including a pardon, including a reduced sentence. The ideal case, of course, would be that India's stand is upheld, that this is a mistake. These are vested interests at play. Pakistan's hand is most definitely there in the framing of these officers. 8 of them who worked for a company called Dhara Global, which provided all manner of logistics, consulting and solutions to the Qatari military and strategic departments. The names of the officers, and we can take them, the names of the officers, some of whom you can see on your screen, are all decorated men. They're all decorated, former officers of the Indian Navy. Commander Purnendu Tiwari, Commander Navtej Singh Gill, Commander Birendra Kumar Varna, Captain Saurabh Vashisht, Commander Sugunakar Pakala, Commander Sanjeev Gupta, Commander Amit Nagpal, and Ragesh Gopakumar. So 8 members of the Indian Navy, all of them retired, all of them working in the private sector for a company called Dhara Global, were arrested in August last year on allegations of espionage. They were sentenced to death in October this year. There were reports that emerged that they had been accused of spying on behalf of Israel. India's stand has been consistent that these are false allegations. They've been framed by vested interests. We now know, as Gaurav said, that Pakistan may have had a hand in this as well. And now, just weeks after the Prime Minister met with Qatar's Emir in Dubai during the COP28 summit, comes the commutation of this sentence. We're not going to be, doing the arithmetic on this. There is a legal process happening in Doha, which will continue even now. But I wanted to bring in some voices, to help us understand this a little better, because this is a very sensitive issue. Captain D.K. Sharma is a former spokesperson of the Indian Navy. But I quickly wanted to start we also have Sushant Sareen, who's a very well-known foreign affairs and strategic affairs observer. Captain Manav Handa is a retired naval officer. He's also a classmate and a former colleague of, all of the officers whose names I've just taken, and all of whose death sentence has now been commuted to a reduced jail term. Captain Handa, I know you can't say very much, sir. It's still a very, very sensitive issue. So I wanted to give you a chance to say your piece, on a day that brings some relief. A death sentence being commuted is not something small. Must come as big relief for you, sir. Captain Handa.
It is a very positive development, and we courtsmates are very happy with this news. We pray to God that our innocent friends should be released and they come back safely to our country. We hope and pray that things fall back in proper conditions and our friends are back with us. These officers have served the Navy with pride. They have spent about 25 years plus serving in the Navy, and they have done nothing wrong. And this is a step in the right direction.
Yes.
And we hope that they come back soon to us.
Captain Handa, how are their families doing? 8 families have been in great anxiety for over a year now. I know, I do not wish to go into any details, but how are they doing? This must come as a huge relief to them as well.
Unfortunately, I am not in touch with the families, but I'm sure this is a news which is a good news and a step in the right direction.
Okay. Captain Handa, I'm going to ask you to stay on with us. And if you want to, add anything to the conversation, please just raise your hand and I'll come to you, because I know that there's not very much more than you can say right now, because this is a sensitive issue and you personally are acquainted with all of the people and you're also colleagues with them. Captain D.K. Sharma, who used to be spokesperson of the Indian Navy, is very well versed with, diplomatic issues as well. He has handled many of these personally as well. Captain Sharma, your thoughts on a day like this? I remember when we spoke about this issue last year, it seemed like, things were in a very dark place. It didn't look like things would move so soon. And now you've got this commutation. Thoughts, sir?
Well, good evening, Shiv. We have been in touch on this issue for the last 18, 19 months now, Shiv, and you have been the first one whom we discussed all these things. But yes, it's a great relief. But the point is that all of us are working towards getting them back.
Yes.
Whether you talk about the topmost leadership of the country when they went there in early December, I'm sure something must have happened. And that is what the first result is, commutation of the sentence. But now, let's see what kind of punishment is being doled out. And then how do we, fight the case? Our ambassador is in the picture. Consular access has been granted. So I can only see positives coming out of it, because the news which came in last month where, capital punishment was announced, it was quite dejecting. It was very, very disappointing. But now, within 4 weeks, we see some forward movement. And the biggest relief is that the capital punishment, the sword hanging on our heads, is no more there. So now it is a battle which will be fought by our legal teams. And the government of India, as you know, is rock solid behind. And I'm sure there will be a way out that we will get our people back. But how much time it will take, only, the procedures will tell us.
Okay, so there are lots of procedures ahead. Like I said, we don't want to overstate something like this, but for a death sentence to be commuted, like Captain D.K. Sharma so rightly said, the sword of that hanging over the heads of these 8 men, at least that is not a worry for the moment. Sushant Sareen, I'd like to come to you because, these are extremely sensitive issues. It's easy to simplify them and simply call it a diplomatic win, but there are many wheels within wheels. There are many layers to the story. The allegations are of an extremely serious nature, allegations of espionage, reportedly on behalf of Israel, etc., etc. How do you see this? How do you interpret what has happened today, sir?
Shiv, let's be very clear. We don't know what exactly these people have been accused of. Nobody knows, right? It's only speculation that it's some kind of spying charges, something or the other. But nobody has actually, at least I haven't. I don't know about you. Actually, seen the charge sheet on the basis of which these people were first, given a death sentence. And we still don't know what are the bases on which they've accepted the appeals and commuted the sentence. Number one. Purely on the charges of espionage, I find it a little weird because, what they are being accused of, you don't need these guys to do this. It could have been done in 500 different ways by the Israelis. You don't need, Indian ex-servicemen who are working in a private company to behave like James Bond out there. So I find I'm a little skeptical. What exactly, why exactly would anybody want to use these guys? But I think what has happened over the last couple of weeks, months, since that death sentence thing was announced, is that not only did the government of India pursue the case legally, it was that we put in everything as far as the legal processes were concerned. But I think we also pulled out all the stops as far as the political and diplomatic aspect of this entire crisis was concerned. Very clearly, in the interaction between the EAM and the Prime Minister with their Qatari counterparts, this issue was being raised. And I think both sides have understood that this will put in such a bitter taste in the mouth if this thing carries on, that it'll ruin the relationship, which, as you very correctly said, that it's been a fairly profitable, mutually beneficial relationship for both countries. So I think everybody would want to put this, on the side.
Right.
So I think we used a diplomatic and political capital that probably played a role. I will certainly not call this a diplomatic win and do any chest thumping. I think like everybody else on the panel today, we are all relieved that at least that sword which was hanging over these men has been lifted. Now the challenge is, how do we bring them back? There are two or three ways. We will still have to continue plugging the diplomatic and political line and use the legal processes. But I think that one is that they can come and they can serve their sentences in India. And then they'll be subjected to the Indian laws and, they could get relief from the Indian courts. The second is that Qataris give them a pardon. But let's not kid ourselves, Shiv.
Yes.
There will be a quid pro quo. Okay. We are all mature people. We are not college kids who think that things happen because of the goodness of mankind and, the milk of human kindness. These are states dealing with each other, and these are ruthless states which deal with each other. So there will be a quid pro quo. I don't know what that is going to be. But to imagine that simply, the Qataris have suddenly got some warm corner in their heart, there would certainly be a calculation that relations with India cannot go sour. But there will have to be a quid pro quo. What will that be? I think we'll have to wait and watch. Nobody is going to tell us. You and people like Gaurav and others can use your considerable skills and your contacts to try and ferret out what might be that pro quo.
I'm glad you think we have vast resources, but I don't think our vast resources will tell us what this quid pro quo is going to be. Maybe we'll be able to report it once it actually happens. I have one more question, which I want to ask, both Captain Sharma and Sushant. Captain Sharma, to you first. Gaurav mentioned that, this is a frame-up. Someone with vested interests has has ensured that something like this has happened? Because as Sushant Sareen said, it's ridiculous. Espionage on behalf of Israel is beyond the absurd. Israel doesn't need 8 former Indian Navy officers to do any of its spying or espionage at all. So my question to you is, how much credence would you give what Gaurav hinted at, which is that Pakistan may have had a hand in this, in framing these Indian men there?
I will not discount any of the theories because I know it. It is the business rivalry. Shiv, you see, our guys.
It's a business rivalry. Okay.
It is our guys. Indians, as such, per se, are very, very hardworking, diligent, and they deliver more than what they contract for. So these guys, and they are not 8 of them, there are hundreds of them, hundreds in all in Dara Global, who were imparting training to a professional Omanese Navy, Qatari Navy. So Qatari Navy is getting trained and they are recommending that these are the guys, this is the company with which we want to deal, and they are the people who will teach us. And believe you me, all of them, all these 8 were a kind of vertical specialists, head of departments. So they were picked up. That is what I understand. Now all the departments, whether it's navigation, seamanship, or whatever training, one is electrical officer, one is engineering officer, so one is looking after the whole overall training. So they have just lifted them because they were a threat to anybody else. I mean, so whosoever is looking for a contractual assignment with the Qataris Navy, they are not able to, break even with this kind of standards which our guys have set up.
Amazing.
And year on year, they are getting the contract. I understand that there were, British people, there were other people of European descent, I mean, say those countries, and of course there were Pakis also. Nobody was able to match the standards which our guys were delivering. So there is a possibility that some hanky-panky has been done by them, and some frivolous charges or the charges which will not stand in the court. But that is what is the whole...
The scary part is, and Sushant, I want to bring you in for a final comment on that, which is, commercial rivalry may have been the case, frivolous charges perhaps, but ultimately they ended in a death sentence, the arrest of these guys, and a death sentence being handed down by a court. It's tempting in all such things to see a Pakistani hand. I usually try to be more careful about such things. But would you discount the possibility of Pakistanis being in some way involved here?
No, I wouldn't discount any possibility. I wouldn't discount the possibility of anything, right? But we'll have to see what is logically possible and what is not. And if indeed this is some kind of a business rivalry, then have any contracts been cancelled or not been cancelled? Because after all, if you make a charge of the sorts that has been made, which then leads to 8 people being sentenced to death, then there's obviously something very serious that they have been charged with. It can't be just something frivolous that some paper has gone missing or something like that. It is something far more serious and far more sinister. What are the after effects of that? That once this charge happened, did that company, Dara Global, I believe it is, has its contracts been cancelled? Have they been ousted out of Qatar? What has happened to them? Has some other company got those same contracts? I think there are a lot of questions which surround this particular case. And frankly, we have no knowledge. We don't know the intricacies of what exactly happened. I don't know if the gentlemen from the Navy have some idea. I don't. I'll be very honest with you. But
interesting.
From a political diplomatic angle, it looks like something they have been charged with. I find it ridiculous what, at least in the public domain, it is being made out what they've been charged with.
Correct.
And that is why maybe that when you pursued both the political and diplomatic lines and you used your capital out there and you used the legal route, you were able to come up with at least this particular relief. Now the challenge will be to get them back home.
I hope that happens. The challenge is there, and I hope it happens very soon.
You can be rest assured it will happen. You can be rest assured it will happen. It might take some time, 3 months, 6 months, a year. It's not going to happen overnight. I doubt it. Even a country like Qatar will, play its cards in a way that they do it in a certain manner. They will not do it in a knee-jerk way. But it will happen. It could take some time.
Okay, it'll take some time, but rest assured it's going to happen is the best possible note on which to end this discussion. I thank you, Captain Handa and Captain Sharma, for joining me. Sushant will be staying with me for the next story as well. But thank you very much. We wish all of those families some relief after many months of anxiety. India Today broke the story first, and we will continue to update you on that. Now, moving on to a story in a country we just mentioned in the previous story. 15 years after the deadly 26/11 terror attack in Mumbai, the Indian government has officially sent an extradition request to the Pakistan government for Hafiz Mohammad Saeed, who, as you know, is one of India's most wanted terrorists and known to be the mastermind behind the 26/11 attacks. It's not the first time India has done so, and it has sent many dossiers to prove the link between Hafiz Mohammad Saeed and the 26/11 attacks. Watch this report. The worst external terror attack on Indian soil. But 15 years and dozens of dossiers later, India has initiated an unusual move. The Modi government has formally asked Pakistan to extradite 26/11 mastermind terrorist Hafiz Mohammad Saeed to India. You heard that right. India's External Affairs Ministry has sent a formal request to the Pakistan government urging them to initiate the legal process for Hafiz Mohammad Saeed's extradition. But what's the point, you're probably wondering? The absence of an extradition treaty between India and